This is the Youth Soccer Revolution Podcast, episode number 21. Welcome back to the Youth Soccer Revolution Podcast. We are on episode 21 now. Wow, what an accomplishment. I really didn't think that we would get this far. And now here we are, episode 21 with Stan Baker. I'm going to play the second part of the interview with a great friend. Very fortunate to have him on the show. We will discuss during the interview the competition he's in, which is called the All-Star Coach, and he'll discuss it a little bit more during the interview. But I urge you to please go and vote for Stan. If you like what you hear, definitely thank him by going on the website, youthsoccerrevolution.com, and episode 21, and following the link that I'll put up on the show notes for you to vote for him. And just give him a chance to win the $5,000 for his program, his high school, as he mentioned. If you want to thank me and Stan for the content that we put out, definitely go out there. Make sure that you vote for him. So again, he'll discuss it a little bit more, so I'm not going to get into too much detail. But definitely before we get started, I want to thank my sponsors, myteamspot.com. If you go on youthsoccerrevolution.com/myteamspot, follow the link, you'll get a 60-day free trial for using My Team Spot, which is crucial to any team for the communication between coach, parents, and kids. Definitely a tool that you want to use as a coach and as a team manager. So I encourage any of you that are involved in youth soccer, if you're not the coach or the team manager, definitely point your coach that way and tell them about My Team Spot. Make sure you use promo code YSE21StanBakerPT2.output.mp3 to get 60 days of free trial to use My Team Spot. Also want to thank Audible. If you go to youthsoccerrevolution.com/Audible, you can get a free download. Again, just for my listeners, go to youthsoccerrevolution.com/Audible and sign up and get a free download. Just want to thank you one more time for tuning in, listening, and then providing feedback to me. Asking questions. I'm always here to help out any way I can. I already do that with the teams and coaches and parents that I work with right now, and I'm glad to do that for you as well. I'm really glad and happy to see the direction that the podcast is going. We're creating a great community of coaches and parents and just kids and just people involved with soccer that want to promote the true player development around the world. So definitely thank you so much to everyone that just gives me positive feedback to keep going and providing content for you guys. Have awesome guests coming up on the show. I've already done the recording, so just got to get around to putting them out there for you. But they're great, and they just keep getting better and better. So really glad to be part of this. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your player development. I don't know, I just can't say thank you enough. Also want to remind you that if you like the podcast, I would appreciate it if you could go on iTunes or Stitcher Radio and give us a 5-star review, or just any type of feedback that you can give us would be appreciated. Love to see the feedback from different continents, different countries, not just here in the United States, but all over the world. So truly blessed to be part of this. Again, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed the second part of the interview with Stan Baker. Again, great guy, great person, great coach, all-around person. Can't say enough about him, as you can tell. And I'll see you on the other side. So let's move on to the Portland Timbers Pre-Academy and the ODP program. Are you still involved with them?
No, I did. I was involved for before they were even the Timbers Academy. I worked with ODP up until the Timbers came into MLS, but I spent about almost 10 years doing it, and now most of my time is spent at Hillsborough Soccer Club, working with young, all different ages, but a lot with the youngest ones, the 7 to say 13, 14 year age group.
And I want to mention in regards to your award that you received,
the national award.
When you received the U.S. Youth Soccer's National Coach of the Year in 2011. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I was at Newburgh Soccer Club, and somebody there they nominated me for the Oregon Coach of the Year award, and I was fortunate enough to win that. I didn't think much about it. I went to the ceremony, and then I got a letter in the mail saying that I had won the Western Regional, Region 4, I guess it is, of the United States award, and that I would be going to Philadelphia for the National Conference, where they would announce the winner for the National Coach of the Year award. So, I mean, it has helped me to some extent open some doors, but just the whole experience was fantastic, being able to go to Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I think, it started from something, I guess, not small, but not as big as you thought when they just kind of nominated you for the Oregon State Coach of the Year, and then it blew up to the regional, and then the U.S. Youth National Soccer Coach. So that was great. Yeah, congratulations.
I was kind of stunned, humbled by it, of course.
Well, good job. I'm sure that you deserved it with all your experience that you bring to soccer and player development. So I'm sure it was well deserved. So and we're discussing some awards. Why don't we talk a little bit about the other, little competition that you have going on right now with the All-Star Coach?
Sure. This is the inaugural year that NBC Universal Comcast Sportsnet Northwest is holding a competition for top high school coaches, and they include all different sports. And I was fortunate enough to be named a finalist. So this month, from March 4th through March 20th, they will hold open voting at the Comcast Northwest website. If I win, my program at Woodburn High School will win $5,000 for our program. And the reason we really need the funding, we just haven't had the funding.
Yeah, I mean, what school couldn't use some funding or program? I mean, which program couldn't use it?
Yeah, I mean, it really is going to help us out.
Okay, and then how can our listeners help you out? What do they have to do?
If they go to the Comcast Sportsnet Northwest website,
which I'll put a link on the show notes, so they can just go to my website, youthsoccerrevolution.com.
There's nothing to put in. You don't have to include any information or register or anything. You just vote.
Yes, and vote for Stan Baker, which obviously his picture is the first one on the left, but to vote is on the right-hand side, and you just click Stan, and then you vote. And it's that simple, right? So simple. It won't take more than probably 10-15 seconds to click a link, see Stan's picture, and then click the little circle next to his name and click vote. So definitely encourage everyone to get out there. Now, Stan, I voted for you already. So
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, of course. Hopefully we get a few votes for you. So, folks, if you like the podcast and you like what Stan brings, definitely get on there and vote for him. Anything else that you want to say about that, Stan?
There's another book if they want to know about the program itself. It's called The Boys from Little Mexico, and it's by Steve Wilson, and can be found again on Amazon. It was written about our program. It's almost entirely Latino-based community, Spanish-speaking, and most of the parents are directly from Mexico. They've migrated from Mexico, and it sets up an interesting dynamic. We also have a Russian population. So in our school district, we teach both Russian and Spanish. and of course English as well. But we have two bilingual programs at the same time going on.
I mean, you guys have a pretty unique situation, and that's probably one of the reasons why they wrote that book. I mean, it's pretty unique with all the players. I've read a little bit of it already, and I mean, it's not typical of the high school you would think you would find in Oregon, right?
No.
I mean, it's
no.
Like you said, mostly Latin kids, Hispanic, and like you said, Russian as well. So it's kind of unique. So yeah, I encourage people to read about it as well if they want to learn a little bit more about the school.
Just a quick note on the community in terms of soccer. I mean, it is a soccer-first community. Everything from the kids, when you go to the elementary schools, at recess, they run their own league during recess.
Wow.
No
Really?
adults involved. They have points for a win, 3 points for a win, 1 for a draw, none for a loss. They have teams that they set up and they run it throughout the school year at the elementary schools.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So no adults are involved whatsoever. Just
no, they just go out.
I mean, obviously, I'm sure they're supervising, but they're not.
They're on the playground, but the kids go run their own league during recess.
And what age groups or what grades?
We're talking first grade to fifth or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's great. People are playing in the park all the time. I love working there because we can discuss. I'll be walking down the hall and somebody will ask me, who won the Champions League game, or they're just constantly it's part of the environment.
Yeah, that's like I said earlier, Stan. I mean, that's one thing I try to tell our listeners to create is that just that soccer environment that lets kids flourish. And it sounds like you guys even have it in your school. I'm jealous. That's great though. Was there anything else? I think in the book it also talks about one of the players there was actually part of the U.S. Youth National Team.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Well, we have one of our players out of Oregon who I was fortunate enough to work with for a couple of years, is Rubio Rubin, who's now in Holland with Utrecht and has made his debut with the U.S. national team. He started against Colombia when they played over in England. And I think he came on late they played Ireland the next game. I think he came on late in that game as well.
And you worked with him during his development?
Yeah. I've had him at the club level, the ODP level, and I coach his brothers, so I know the family very well. He's
awesome.
a special individual who's very driven inside as well as he's a fantastic player. But it's he's the complete player, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we see him obtain even greater heights.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, he's already at a very high level, so yeah, hopefully he continues getting stronger and better. So, Stan, do you have time for a few more questions?
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So we'll just go through a few more quick questions, and again, hopefully I won't take up too much of your time.
No.
What do you think about players specializing in one sport?
Yeah, this has been a discussion. I think there are a lot of ifs, and it depends on.
Mm-hmm.
Most players are not going to be professional players, but for me, it's not the problem is not specialization as much of only playing soccer. I think it's how we train, how we go about. We don't warm up the spirit. We do too much analytical as opposed to playing the game. We don't expose our players to different surfaces and have them play futsal part of the year, or integrate different types of games on, playing against the wall. And we tend to just play on the same surface and do the same things the whole year round, and then kids get burned out a little bit at times. They don't have the same motivation. For example, in Brazil is a different. Everybody points out that Brazil is a completely different case, but it is something to point to that they don't believe that there are any other sports. And when I asked about what other sports, what do you think about having your young players play different sports, they said, well, there aren't any other sports. And then they came back and said, well, there's beach soccer, futsal, street soccer, volley soccer, so they're tennis soccer, and then all the games that they come up with, just to play with for fun. I think the key, the thing that if they're only doing structured games or structured training environments where adults are running everything, then those are not as fun environments. So because we talked about specialization being, I've heard it being called a bad thing, but if it's done the right way and there's variation happening and it's a fun, enjoyable environment, and it's not so structured at the beginning, and that the kids have time to play on their own in their free play environments, which we have done at our club once a week at least. We've done once a week during the summers, and so doing one sport, I don't know if that's the problem. I've seen kids go from one sport to another practice, structured practice to another structured practice to another structured practice with different sports, from basketball to volleyball to baseball, whatever it is. And those kids, that's the problem, that they get burned out doing too much structured environment where they're not allowed to just go and play and have fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that you're discussing this, because what, I think when people say specialize, they mean, okay, you're going to go to practice, go 190 miles an hour, you're going to get home, we're going to take you to the athletic trainer or your personal trainer, and you're going to go 100 miles an hour, and those are all very structured. So yes, you don't want to do that to a kid, but if I once saw some kids at a tournament, and they were playing around with a ball, and they were just kind of kicking it back. They weren't really practicing anything. They were just kind of playing a game with the ball and running around, and it was hot. And the coach told them, hey, what are you guys doing? Stop doing that. You go sit down and don't do that because you got a game going. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? Let the kids play. They love the game. As long as they're playing, I mean, who cares? That's how they translate soccer as, a ball. And they love, nothing's going to hurt anything because they're playing their little game that they just made up. If anything, it's going to make them fall in love more with the ball and what it does.
Exactly.
And so I think I agree. I agree with you that I think it depends. Like you said, if all we're doing them is making them do structured practice and structured training, then yes, that's really not good for them. But if they're going to be playing all their little games and that's all they want to do, if a kid gets home from his structured training and then he wants to go outside with his friend and just kick the ball back and forth, I don't think that's overdoing it. I mean, because there's no more pressure on him. He can stop at whatever time he wants.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree with you, and thank you for telling us that. Anything else about specialization?
No, I think that's the key.
Did you, Stan?
What's that?
Did you specialize?
I started playing different sports. I was involved in basketball and baseball, but again, I didn't end up getting to what I would consider the highest level. I think if we're talking about our competition is the world, and we're looking at the top countries, Brazil and Argentina and Spain and Germany, these countries, there is more emphasis on soccer. I mean, they're soccer first, everything. And but I do think, again, they have a lot more opportunity just to go play soccer with friends on a Friday night or whatever, away from a structured, especially
different
South
culture
Africa,
and environment.
Especially in Africa right now, there's certain places in the world that we're getting more creative players. I think I just saw recently an article from a German, Breitner, former World Cup champion and Bayern Munich star, Paul Breitner, who mentioned how important it is for the free play, that players, in his opinion, are artists and not just athletes, and that in the United States we tend to treat our youngsters as athletes rather than artists and allow them to make the decisions and put them in free play environments, because everything is structured, and that I don't know how we get around that. It's a difficult thing because until that becomes part of our culture, and I know it is part of our culture in many areas, as I mentioned in Woodburn where I work. The kids don't need parents. They just go. They've been taught by the parents because they've been taught the joy of the game, and they watch it on TV with their parents, and they go play in the park. But then away from that, then they just go off and play with their friends. Whereas we just don't do that. So everything is structured.
What advice can you give parents or young coaches about player development?
I think the biggest thing at the youngest age groups, and really all the way up, is that we do too much analytical. Analytical training is, especially at the training sessions, at the group sessions when the team, all the players come together, they should be allowed to play the game more than standing in line. And I've had new coaches that don't understand. They want to make it look good for the parents, so they'll put the kids in lines and they'll pass the ball back and forth to each other and run with no decision making and really no perception happening. Whereas if you put them in a game, it may not look really good right away. There may be long periods of months that they don't look very good because they haven't learned what to do when the game changes. But the coaches still don't understand that it's an open game, that everything changes constantly, and so you can't teach them just one thing. If you're teaching them the technique isolated from the game, they won't learn when to pass the ball, how hard to pass the ball, what speed, what velocity. All that comes in when they have teammates, ball, opponents, space, time, and rules, and which is called the global way of training, global game, or global training. And this is what we need probably 85% of the time at our training sessions. If we're think specifically about training, we should be doing global activities. And that can include activities such as rondos as well. Could be wave games. Wave games are numbers up, say 3 attackers against 2 defenders to a goal. And they just constantly do waves, and then you can allow for transition where if the defending team wins the ball, then they can attack. Because we need to really focus a lot on the transition time, which are the most important moments of the game. When we win the ball, or when we have the ball, when the opponents just win the ball, and when they clearly have the ball. Very important to train that from a young age. And how do you train that? You put them in different game situations.
Yeah, and I think that goes to when you're playing street soccer, it's just constant, boom, 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 games, and so you get exposed to all those situations, all those times when there's a transition, from offense to defense, from winning the ball to countering, all those transitions just discussed. So that's probably one of the reasons why you love it so much.
Yeah.
Our final question, and we normally ask this to all our guests, and we're really interested to know what you think about this. I want you to go back to when you're 5 years old, and if you could go back and be 5 again, you have all the knowledge that you have right now, that that you've learned over the years, and you can go back and do it over again. Walk me through your the way you would start out with soccer again, and walk me through your player development phase.
Sure. Well, if I were, obviously I'd like to have a culture where and neighborhood where the kids were playing soccer. That's number one. So that I could go with my friends and just play street soccer in front of the house, down in the park. That's number one. If we did have training sessions, instead of playing 11v11 games, we would play small-sided games. And in my opinion, I just love Horsevine's 4-goal Funinho game for the youngest age groups. 3 versus 3 to 4 wide goals with scoring zones, with where the players are playing constructive soccer. There's not a lot of coaching going on. Only the basic concepts are taught here and there, but the players are allowed to play a lot. 7, 8, 9, 10. So all those 4 years are critical. And Horse really doesn't believe in structured play before 7. So I would say at 5 I would just be at home with my family playing the game. 5 and 6, 4, as soon as you can walk, I put balls around. I have a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I haven't even put them into a team yet. Obviously the 2-year-old is still too young as well, but my 7-year-old, I haven't put him in a team. He just messes around with the ball in the house. We have them in the kitchen. We have them in the garage. We have them in the backyard. They're all over the place. And he'll dribble the ball around the house and juggle and have fun. We mess around. But then when they get to about 7, then we can start putting them on a team, getting them accustomed to what it is to play on a team, but very small-sided, the 3 against 3, and then build up from there. I don't know how I ended up loving the game, starting at 7, playing 11v11. It's a minor miracle because I came from a family that wasn't soccer first, but they were very much into being a world, that we're part of a bigger world. They sent me to Mexico, for example, when I was 12 to train or play soccer down in Mexico City. So
wow.
By myself on an airplane. And I knew people down there that I ended up staying with for about a month, but that was an eye opener too. So those kinds of things. They gave me good experiences, allowed me to experience other things, but we just didn't know at the time that 11v11 was such a negative. But somehow I ended up, I think part of it was just experiences along the way. Being able to see the game on television is extremely important. It was important in my developing a love of the game. And then I learned Spanish because I couldn't see any soccer in English except for.
Yeah, Stan, I was going to ask you if you were, or how did you learn to speak Spanish?
Really, I'd been exposed to it. I mean, my first best friend they were from Mexico, so I'd go to their house, and I didn't, I'd hear Spanish, and I didn't understand anything. And then I was sent to Mexico City at 12, so I was exposed a little more. But it wasn't until I went to Spain and lived there at 17 for a year that I really learned Spanish. And then I married a Peruvian. I lived in Peru for 2 years. And now I teach Spanish, so I speak Spanish. I teach native speakers, so that helps to maintain the Spanish. And I try to learn things. I'm constantly learning. I'm a lifelong learner. Right now I'm doing a master's degree from La Universidad Católica de Murcia in video analysis and scouting from Spain, university in Spain. So all these things helped me to maintain a Spanish, and have given me all the different licenses that I took have given me a terminology, so that when I go to translate something for someone like Horst Vine, that I have the terminology for soccer specific, soccer specific terminology.
Yeah. And I kind of interrupted you a little bit again when you were discussing the player development with your experience,
right.
But I want to know, at what point, we talk about, like, travel soccer and academies, and we obviously don't want to expose kids to that, not that much anyway, when they're 6, 7, 8 years old. But at what point would you say that a parent has to kind of look in the mirror and make a good decision about their player? I think maybe around 13, 14, if they really think that a player is pretty good, and maybe that's when they do start to think about in terms of what club they go to or what coaches they're exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's dictated by the player, their love of the game, how driven are they. But yeah, that's probably about the time that players would gravitate to a club, maybe a better club that has higher level players. And I think it's important, though, that if you're a parent, that you understand what the training should look like, and the way that the game is played should look like. Because you could go to what is supposedly a club that wins a lot, that has state champions, but they don't know how to play soccer, and they don't develop players very well.
Yeah, that's a great point, because just because even at that age, when you're 14, 15, just because you're winning does not mean that they're developing. Because if they're playing the kick and run and they just have all the best athletes,
mm-hmm.
It's not going to make a difference. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, that the parents should understand what soccer looks like, good soccer anyway. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And anything else then that you want to discuss in regards to player development? We've reached the end of our interviews.
No, I encourage, if there are parents listening, young coaches, that they do pick up my book. It does have a lot in there from different angles on some of the ideas that I really feel are important in understanding the environment to create for player development, the best environment for players.
Yeah, definitely. You just given us a little piece today. Just about all the knowledge that you've picked up from all these different associations around the world, and all your experiences, and not just in playing, but in coaching and developing other players. So, that much alone is definitely worth it. And then again, I'll put a link to it, but you can definitely find it on Amazon. If anyone has a question or they want to reach out to you, do you have a Twitter account, a website?
Yeah.
What's the best way for them to contact you?
I have a website, and if they go to, I can give it to you right now. It's www.soccer-artistry.com. There's a little hyphen in the middle between soccer and artistry.com, and my contact information is in there.
Great. So they should definitely pick up the book and then send you an email letting you know what they thought about it.
I would really appreciate it. I love hearing, getting questions and comments from people around the country, and I've actually had the opportunity to visit a number of clubs, having been invited out to places around the country. And
okay.
Something I enjoy.
So again, www.soccer sport-artistry.com. The book is called Our Competition is the World by Stan Baker. I'll put a link on the show notes as well. I'll also put a link to the All-Star Coach voting for them to vote for you. Definitely encourage it because Stan deserves it. I think the school deserves it, and I'm sure you know some of the other contestants as well, and I'm sure they're well deserving as well. But we definitely want you to win it. So hopefully everyone takes quick action. Again, it'll take 10-15 seconds and a quick 2-3 clicks, and it's a quick vote. Okay, Stan, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the success, and hopefully you win that All-Star Coach.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, guys, thanks again for listening. Thank you again to Stan for coming on. Again, don't forget, take a few seconds of your time and go vote for Stan. If you go to YouthSoccerRevolution.com, episode 21, and click on the link, it'll take about 5 or 10 seconds of your time. You only have until March 28th, 2015, so make sure you vote. Definitely appreciate it. And I'll see you on episode 22.